Boom.
Boom.
All right. So then all we have to do is take the link, all right, and share it to the Discord. It's a very simple operation. Okay, so we go into the Discord. We say the thing. There. Boom. And then the last one would be, I think Twitter is actually automatically notified. And it should show like live banners around our user or whatever profile pictures and stuff.
Yeah, I see it.
So
I don't think it would be around mine though, right? Because I didn't connect it.
Probably. That makes sense.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't care.
like,
It's fine.
oh my God, they've released a Lego Lord of the Rings set. It's over for us. Yeah. So cool. I'm gonna pop open the code base for Create Expo Stack, which this one is open sourced. So okay, this is Jay. Jay, do you wanna give an intro of like why did you even do legend lists, like when there's so many lists available today? While I open it.
Sure. Yeah. Basically, I had a React Native app like 6 years ago, and it was okay. And one of my users opened the web app on his phone and said, "Hey, your web app's actually much faster," because I had built a web-based virtual list, and it was so much better than FlatList. So I ended up migrating my whole React Native app to be a React Native app that just wraps a web view. So I had made this virtual list a long time ago, and then I was at conferences last year talking to people about lists, and I said, basically, like, it's all solved now, right? And they said, no, everything's terrible. And they told me all the reasons that they're all bad. And they told me about, like, there's some performance issues and it doesn't really work on every platform. And there's a bunch of weird issues natively sometimes. Making a chat UI inverts the list, which is crazy concept to me.
It is. So I've done that before.
Yeah. So it applies a scale y -1, and then all your animations are insane because it's all upside down. And so, like, if you wanted to pick something up and move it, it's insane because you're moving it from an inverted coordinate system out into a regular coordinate system. So it just does all this weird stuff. So then I thought, well, I've made a virtual list before. I thought maybe with the new architecture being synchronous layout, we could make it work really well. So I gave it a try. And then it turned out it didn't even need synchronous layout. It was possible this whole time.
Yeah. Dude, yeah. I actually think every mobile developer in general should just have to, it's kind of like working retail or something like that. Like, you should just have to make a chat app so that you understand, you know, like I definitely categorize developers on the basis of like, have you created a chat app yet? It's a whole, I
made a to-do list app.
Yeah, that's so. But the to-do list is like straightforward read write kind of stuff, right? Like it's very CRUD or like,
yeah.
Chat touches a lot of stuff. It'll teach you a lot about, like, if you give someone a chat thing and say, hey, implement this for me, you have, like, I don't know, a couple hours. I think even with an LLM, there's a question of like what they're going to hand off to you. And I think a lot can be said about a developer based off of what they choose to hand off to you, saying like, this is good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, Jay and I briefly traveled around Asia together through, where did you, did you do Jeju, or was that?
Yeah, we hiked the mountain together. Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Was that, yeah, oh my God. Dude,
did you forget about that?
I did not forget about that. I was in a cat suit that I still have, like one of those like animal things, like a red panda suit, and it was the midnight one, right? Like we started like crazy early or something. It was like a
Crazy early,
sunrise.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just remember like my legs failing out from underneath me basically by the end of it. I think everyone was basically out of commission for like a week after that.
Yeah.
Um
Except the one guy.
yeah, yeah.
You remember
And
the one guy? He just like ran up the mountain, and we
yeah,
got there.
he
He's like, "I've been here for 3 hours. What are you doing?"
and then the old like I remember like walking up like really struggling like towards the middle, right, where it started to get really hard. Um and there are these just like elderly Korean couples, right, with their little like ski poles or whatever, just coming
Yeah,
down, and they're just like chilling, like no problem. They're like 80
no
years
problem.
old. They're just like, yeah, this is just like a regular Sunday for me, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a time! What a
Mhm.
sunrise though. Like
Oh,
that was
beautiful.
stunningly beautiful.
Mm.
So yeah, and then like arbitrarily, so this was like 20. Oh God, when was that? That was 2016, I want to say. Like just as React Native had come
Yeah,
out.
around there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had only just jumped into it.
Mm.
Actually on that trip. Like that
Oh,
trip
cool.
was probably the first time I touched React Native. Um
Hmm.
and I don't even know if you were using it. Were you using it at the time?
I don't think so. I started using it after I went to React Native EU in
Okay.
2017, I think.
Yeah. Well, so, I worked on it and then I think we parted ways at like Indonesia uh
Yeah.
a couple months later. And ever since it's just been React Native stuff. But literally I think before that trip, I was a Swift boy. I was like on that train. And
Yeah.
then during that trip I jumped into React Native and now we're here. But we had not chatted for a while between
Yeah. Been
now
a
and
long
then.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think we just randomly saw each other at a conference. It's like, I recognize
yeah.
you.
Yeah, I've seen you before on a mountaintop with
Yeah.
monkeys and oranges. Yeah. So, okay, let's get into it. I think so I'll share my screen if I can remember how I do that. Present. There we go. Share screen. And let me make sure notifications are off. And this one. I'm gonna need you to tell me how much is seeable.
Text is
I'm gonna have
very
to,
small.
yeah, I have to zoom in here like
Uh,
quite a bit.
that
This,
looks reasonable to me. Yeah.
yeah, this should be good. So we're gonna make this quite a bit smaller here. Oh, in a world. You got this. There we go. Okay. We don't care about the cursor updates. Okay, so basically we can do just like a global find on this. It'd be really funny if also like create Expo stack just didn't have it. Oh wait, we're not looking for scroll view. We're looking for flat list. I don't think it even has it. This might be an easier. We might be able to just jump right into the NativeWindUI. This is going to be great.
Is there a flash list in there?
That's dude. I was telling Jay that yeah,
That's the one.
yeah, there it is. I like woke up. I set an alarm for 8 a.m. I woke up at 8:45. I was like, oh shit. And I ordered like the first thing I did was order a coffee. And I am drinking that coffee and we're about to get through this, but like I I'm like I'm piecing together the things right now.
Well,
Hmm.
it's midnight for me, so I'm gonna fade out soon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we'll
So
come in and out together.
yeah, exactly. All right. So we're gonna be replacing FlashList with Legend List here. And um and then we're going to generate a project for React Native. Let's see which one this is. This is okay. So this is all native. This is actually all NativeWindUI templates, right? So the way that Create Expo Stack basically works is that you have, Jay, you've used it, right?
Just a little bit. I actually haven't made a React Native app in a few years. So.
That's wild.
But we just started planning our next React Native app, which we're going to start soon.
Hell
so we're gonna use NativeWindUI for that. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. So the way it generally works is it's just like very configurable. It's like if you've ever used Create, what is it, Next app or Vercel app or whatever, like they ask you a whole mess of questions, right? And so you can like configure it however you see fit, and then it'll just like spit out a project, right? And it takes some inspiration from Theo's thing, T3 or whatever, and so the way that we'll generally be editing files, just so you understand the context of what's going on, is that if we close out the website, so we go to the CLI bit, right? The source, and then we have here. Okay, so you see this? Okay, this little like file tree off to the side. Let's make this quite a bit smaller. Oh my god, dude. This trackpad life right now is so you have base files. Base files are basically like everything that's in like every single project for the most part, and then you have like packages, right? So these are going to be all the packages, basically all the different configurations, right? And it largely works on a basis of like these EJS files that, right? So like this one doesn't seem to have any conditional code, but you'll see the syntactic sugar around. Okay, we need to find an example of this. Yeah, okay, so there's that syntactic sugar if you see it, right? So it's like this conditional logic, and it gets removed once the project basically pulls together like all of the configurations that you're using. It adds the relevant files that are contained within each one of these folders, right? To basically construct your project, each of the files, including this syntactic sugar, and then it runs a single generator function across all of them. And that removes the syntactic sugar and removes any of the code that does not pertain to your project, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward, a little bit messy to like maintain sometimes, but like overall it's done really, really well. So we use it for NativeWindUI for like spinning up a blank project, right? So if you just want like a pre-configured NativeWindUI project, or you want a pre-configured NativeWind project like that, that's a lot of how it gets used. So for this though, when we go then into like FlashList usage, right? We are in one of the NativeWindUI templates, right? So it's like the drawer app, like so it's in the NativeWindUI package, and yeah. So this is basically being used as the demo app, right? If you were to run, you run Create Expo Stack by doing rn-new, right? So you do npx rn-new, and then you would do like -- NativeWindUI, right? That's going to render our like demo app, which is a list of all of the different components, right? And so that's what this flash list is being used for. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be the bulk of how it's used everywhere. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. So we can just knock that out pretty quick, I think. But I want to kind of focus on and understand like what's for someone who's more like, I guess, using this as maybe a news feed or something in their app. What's the mentality that they should go in with, like respect to doing the actual migration? Is it at all like, are there a bunch of edge cases to it in any way, shape, or form? Or is it just like mostly just a swap out of the name and like the API remains largely the same.
Yeah, it's basically a drop-in replacement, and as far as I know, there's no edge cases.
Okay.
But there's one difference, which is FlashList has this view recycling system,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is good for performance because it recycles the native views, but it's potentially bad in that it also recycles the state. So if you are, say you have a stateful item, and then it says counts up to 5, and then it scrolls out, it actually moves back down and scrolls up again. So it gets replaced with the new item, but it still has the state of the old item. So
That's
that
weird.
can cause, yeah, that's just because it's recycling, it recycles all the state too. So that could potentially do some weird stuff. We have some hooks called use recycling state, which will reset it when it comes back into view.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the issues people have with FlashList, is that it is a recycling list. So that is just how it works. But legend list, that is optional, so it can work without that, or you can enable it. So for a straight conversion from FlashList to legend list, you would also add the recycle items problem, and then it's the same thing.
Okay. All right. So I think actually the first thing we want to do is that we want to make sure that the package.json is importing the correct files and stuff so that the like configuration is being done properly.
Mm-hmm.
So when we add a dash, we can see where that's being added here. Again, still all NativeWindUI stuff. Yeah, so you can see like if NativeWindUI, then add these things. So we're gonna swap this out for legend list, and
it's at legend app /list.
Like that?
Yeah. And then it's currently a beta, so it's 1.0.0-beta 25.
.25.
Yeah, let me find the latest version. I forget exactly what it is. 24.
Yeah.
25 would have been bad.
All right, so we have that.
So that should be good.
And then I'm gonna copy and paste that basically to the other ones.
Okay. You might want the up caret thing at the front. I'm not sure how that works with beta, but I think so.
I don't know how it works with beta, but I will add the caret.
So I think it'll be 1.0 within a few weeks, but yeah, it's
my God.
There's one last hard problem that is being worked on.
Okay. So then it basically just looks like from here on out, we're just gonna import the list right in the files that we were looking at previously. So we would do like this, import list from legend list.
That's a hallucination. That would be legend list. It was almost right. Yeah.
So close. Like that.
Right. Yeah.
Dude, this stuff is getting good. Okay, so now we have the legend list. We go down to our flash list, and we can literally just then like this.
Yeah. And then if you want the same behavior, add recycle items at the end.
Add
or
recycle.
Somewhere.
Whoa.
Sorry,
yeah, dude. No. Oh man, I guess I don't even have to do equals true. I could just do that. That was so funny. That was like hardcore like rat brain stuff. Okay, all right. So that's that file. That should work. I'll like as a last step, I'll remove Shopify at the end, right?
Sure.
Just to make sure. So again, we want to go up to the top of this file, import legend list from legend app list. Then we scroll down to flat list, or not flash list. Also, you don't want to know how much I I spent a lot of time thinking about that meme for the stream. I was like actually trying to make it like very serious at first, and then I was like, no, hold on. There's 900 engineers at Shopify. They've raised something like $125 million, I think, or more.
Whoa.
And then there's just Jay, and he just made this list. He just one-shotted it.
Well, it's much more than one shot. It's quite a lot of effort, but yeah. There's only a small team of, I think, 5 that contributed to FlashList.
That's what I'm saying. Over what time period are we talking about there?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if everybody knows, but there was a library recycling list view. I forget exactly what it was called. Recycler list view, I think. And FlashList is built on top of that.
Okay.
So FlashList has a large dependency of recycler list view under it.
Okay. Still, though, if you think about how long FlashList has been around, you know, and how many people they have behind it, it's baffling. I also did not know they had 900 engineers. Obviously, not all of them working on React Native, but
yeah,
not all of them working on React Native. Okay, we have this. I think it should work. I don't think that let's just do like a search for this just to make sure it shows up.
The CSS interop you might need to change.
Yeah. Good call. So like this. Oh God, I deeply hope that that's not going to cause problems. If I know
fully
anything,
know how CSS interop works, but
no one fully knows how CSS interop. One person knows roughly how it works,
and it's not you,
and it's not me. No, I know enough that like you want to use either CSS interop or this other function, basically, depending on your use case and what you're trying to do. It's largely going to go away in the next version of NativeWind, but yeah, look, I'm focusing a lot of time right now on, so 2 things real quick with NativeWind. One, there's going to be some new docs, and fuck, they're awesome looking. Like, they're just great.
awesome.
It's really, it's like hard to not share what they look like. 2, we're spending a lot of time on version 5, which like supports, I don't know how up to date you are with Tailwind stuff, but like Tailwind styling. Yeah, they have version 4 out, right? And they've had it for a bit now, and so it's going to support that. So those are like the 2 things we're pretty heads down on, and the CSS interop thing is, as well as a lot of other changes, basically like much less configuration needed to get up and running with NativeWind. That's all going to be part of version 5.
Awesome.
All right, you're going to have to bear with me as I try to remember.
I'm using NativeWind now in a Mac app, which is fun.
Yeah, dude. Okay, we need to talk about that, because I think that there's a giant gap for people who are trying to build like desktop applications with React Native, and there's like a whole mess of problems, and I want to try to address those. I also want to make it a lot easier for people who are building like with BuilderBob, to use NativeWind as well. There's just a lot of breadth of coverage of how to make it nicer to use NativeWind. And so I have to kind of take it one step at a time, but I'm very curious to hear what the experience has been like. I think you mentioned that it was pretty good for the most part. So that's really good to hear, because I haven't thought about the word desktop in a very long time. But someone asked me recently, I think I sent you the message or something. Yeah, like I tagged the friend, and he's like, what's the status of like desktop applications with React Native? And I'm like, I am not that guy. I know a number of things. That is not one of them.
I kind of want to just YOLO this and just ship it up to fucking production.
Let's see if it works first.
Yeah. I'm also not that guy. I'm not just like a let's see if it works first. I'm very much like let's test everything in production. I have a kinship with trash on this one. All right, so I think it was build directly from this. It might be in the CLI folder specifically. I'm like like this is like calling on the scriptures, you know, like your past. I think it's like bun run. Oh, let's do. Hold on. Yeah, it's like bun. We use bun, so I don't know how I feel about bun. I'm gonna be real.
Why? I love bun.
I'm on like basically tool fatigue. Talk to me about tool fatigue. Jay, you've been in the scene for a while. There's new shit coming out. Are you using Biome too? Are you?
Yes.
Dude, I don't. You're some sort of
So-
like young man at heart that like
No,
I feel
that-
like I was born old.
I was using for legend list. I was using Prettier, and then someone came in and PR'd, "Let's switch to Biome." And I was like, "All right, cool." And so now we're using Biome, and it's pretty nice. Yeah, I wouldn't have set it up myself, but someone PR'd it, and it was good.
I guess I'm not the one to set it up myself. You know, I'll have people be like, "Oh, you got to use bun," and then we use bun for a while, and then we run into like crazy runtime errors or whatever, and we can't like make sense of them. And then I'm like, we're going back to npm. Fuck all this noise. But you know that it's like one of those like that was 6 months ago type of deals. It's different now, and I might be wrong. It is very fast. I will give it that.
It is. Early on, I tried to use their tests, and it didn't fully work, but it all works now. They were just missing some features back then, but it's great now.
Okay, I forget if it's like
link.
I think it's like bun link. This is we're in the deep scriptures now. I don't quite remember how this works. I think it's like this. Hold on. I wrote a contributing doc, not for other people, but for myself back in the day to address this exact situation. So we're going to take a look, and then it's like, you got a contributing. Oh my God, dude. I look at the downloads of Create Expo Stack every month, and it goes up, and it just like shatters my mind. I'm like, I never would have thought that 11,000 people would be. It's literally 500 projects a day. Like that's asinine. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
So bun run build. Yeah. Okay. So it says that bun doesn't support linking, but this is also from like a while ago. We should try linking it with bun and then see if it works. All right, YOLO. All right, so then we can like basically go back a directory and then just run. Well, we'll use the Create Expo Stack one, but it would work with rn new. So we would do this. We hit it with that. No saved configuration. Yes, TypeScript.
Sorry, you got me curious. I just looked. Legend List has 5,000 weekly downloads already.
Dude, right? Like it's
V1 isn't even out yet. That's
crazy.
Wild.
You're about to see that number like jump up.
So my other library, Legend State, is at 27,000 a week. Wild stuff.
Yeah, man. Temper your ego. You're not like an egotistical person though. Like
no, I don't think so.
No, like
it's cool to see that though.
It is cool. No, it's fucking awesome. Yeah. Like it's
Oh, you got to change this line here.
Which one?
State management.
Oh, because we need to add legend state.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, there's actually a mess of PRs I need to add that add clerk authentication, and then dude, someone added Redux to this thing. I'm like, did you just say the R word? Like, are we allowed to say that anymore? You know, like
some people say it, I think.
So yeah, I have to review a Redux PR in 2025 for reasons. But okay, so we're not going to save this, and then it's just going to go ahead and install the dependencies, and then we'll run the project. And honestly, if it runs, then we're basically good here. I actually think that like that would make it really simple to replace all the instances in whatchamacallit in NativeWindUI. So I would just go do that myself probably. But yeah, so hold on, the desktop stuff. So what have you done desktop apps with React Native much at all before this, or was like this year?
No, I didn't think it was possible until a few weeks ago.
And like you're using Tari, I want to say.
So for my other app, Legend, that uses Electron.
Oh God!
But that's been an Electron app for like 10 years, and so I was just experimenting with like well, this started as I wanted to test Legend List to just see if it worked on desktop, and I tried it and it did, and it was really fast, and then it was pretty cool. So then I just started playing with it, and then I was talking to Saad, who's the guy at Microsoft who works on it.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's really nice. I like him.
Yeah. So I was chatting with him about like, does this all work? And he's like, yeah, it's all really good. Well, he would never say it's all really good. He said it's all stable and works. And so then I just kept playing with it, and then had Cursor and Claude vibe code me like a photo app, and then it just all works. So I just released it yesterday, actually, open source.
Hell yeah!
And yeah, it's the fastest Mac app I've ever seen.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's really like that's
like
amazing.
when you double click the icon, there's this the icon animates, it grows on Mac. The app is open before that animation is finished. It's crazy.
That's crazy.
So yeah, basically I made this, I just built that app, and then I ran it in production. I was like, this is incredible. And so I'm just continuing to play with it, and it's really good. And
is the DX like good as well? Like,
yeah, it's React Native.
Baffling.
Yeah. And I installed NativeWind, and it just worked. There was no problem. Like,
that's amazing.
Just follow the instructions on the website, no problem.
That's amazing. That's another thing that I think if you had told me sort of at the when we first met, like 2016, that building with React Native would be like synonymous with like a good DX, I would never have believed you, I feel like.
Yeah.
You know? Well, I just think that everything was a bad DX back then, but especially React Native, because it didn't quite know what it was yet.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, it would be great if Expo supported desktop. It does not at this point. So there's some rough edges of using the bare CLI and stuff.
Yeah, that's another part that I was thinking. I think CallStack just released a way to create bare React Native apps. So behind the company that like does the open source, like this Create Expo Stack thing, NativeWindUI is Ronin. Ronin is like, we do agency work as well, and a lot of our clients also we surprisingly find a lot of them using just like plain React Native. And I'm always curious what specific things, because some of them will be like, oh, we want to upgrade up to like the latest React Native, and then also to use Expo. Or for those who have sort of used Expo and are now like working on this project that's React Native, like where are those pain points specifically? Like what areas in this desktop app, as an example, for you are the problem areas where you're like, man, I would really wish I had Expo here? Because like obviously deployment is a big one, right? But like you're not there, and it doesn't affect deployment in the same way. Like it's not.
Deployment's much easier because I'm not going through the App Store. I'm just putting an app file in a zip, and like setting up the notarization, which is what I was doing yesterday. It's kind of a pain, but I think the main thing that's kind of tough is it's kind of an uncharted territory. So I'm just kind of doing a lot of it without any guidance. Like Sod is helping me a fair amount with what he knows, but yeah, like
I just want to I want to point out like the significant for anyone who doesn't know who Sod is, like this dude is one of the people who like in a single conversation with him, I'm like, I kind of wish I worked at Microsoft. Which is like,
yeah,
if you knew my history with Microsoft, I've told it to like a couple people, is not good. Is really, really not good. Like I have had some gnarly interviews with Microsoft, and this, the fact that Saad would be someone that's so pleasant to talk to and like so humble,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
to make
Well,
me want to work there is nuts.
I've actually met a lot of the Mac OS and React Native Windows people at Microsoft. They're all great.
They're all great. Like I've met, I
Yeah.
think only two of them. I was at Chain React last year, and I met the two of them in the lobby of the hotel. Like I said, they were very, very humble and just sort of like
Yeah.
wanted to chat about stuff that I think it was NativeWindUI. Like they expressed interest in NativeWindUI because they were doing something similar for the desktop stuff, right? They wanted to have like a native feel to the Microsoft desktop applications.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is amazing. Like that's such a great way to start a conversation, like to start that conversation, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, and there was no ego about it.
That is a potentially interesting thing for maybe NativeWindUI is part of the things I'm running into is a lot of the React Native libraries don't work on Mac OS or Windows. And so I ended up building a lot of native modules. By I built, I mean Claude built a bunch of native modules.
Yes,
so it's
as
like,
is tradition.
I want to be able to toggle the 3 color icons at the top left. Okay, build a native module. I want to open a window. Okay, build a native module. I want to work with a file system watcher. Okay, make a native module, because these libraries just don't exist. And so that I think that's the main problem right now is there's not really an ecosystem around it yet.
So interestingly enough, that's kind of like what had I told you about Plugin Pro and stuff yet, or no?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the goal. Like we aim to use it like internally for a while, and then as like these things surface, i.e., as people just start making these like modules, then we would invite folks in to start using it, because there'd be like a registry, right, of all these different like modules that people could start playing around with. We kind of just got tired of like the cycle of let's look for a plugin, or like let's look for a module. Oh, it doesn't exist. Oh, we have to build it. And then, now it's just on our machines and someone else has to go through that journey kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And so that we've been using Plugin Pro for that kind of stuff. And the goal is to sort of surface it to other folks as like I said, the registry builds up. But I definitely get that pain point with the native development stuff. As far as NativeWindUI covering desktop, it's a really compelling thing. We, building stuff, I think cross-platform is like, there's definitely a meme about like cross-platform versus multi-platform. By the way, this works. This is super easy.
Oh, I wasn't even paying attention.
Yeah, no, I mean, like we were just building the project in the background. This just works. It's great.
Cool. All right.
So, and it's performant. It looks great. So I'm gonna basically go ahead and swap this out in NativeWindUI, and NativeWindUI will just be using this everywhere.
Wow, awesome.
So I definitely highly recommend using this. That swap was super easy. There's no thought put into it. It was literally just almost like a one-to-one name swap out, basically, and so I'm sure you include like benchmarks and performance profiling information. No.
So it's interesting because it's gotten faster constantly since I started it. So the original benchmarks are like, it seems like it's slightly faster, and then now it's like maybe it's like 20%, maybe 40%. It also depends on what you're doing. Like The Mac app I made, you could have 8 columns of 6 rows of images and scroll through it with no problem. And like that's wild.
That is
But
crazy.
I can't benchmark that against FlashList because they don't support Mac, and so it's just and then FlatList just crunches. It doesn't even work. So it's basically the only option on Mac. And then on mobile, it's generally faster, but it's also different on new architecture versus old architecture. So I think we need to make good benchmarks. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I've been
But
so
it's
this whole
complex.
benchmarking thing has been coming up a lot. I've been doing some work with the Margello folks as well, and they do a lot of performance work, right? Like that's their whole thing is performance improvement. And I have been silently in the background working on tools that would sort of snapshot provide benchmarks like before after type stuff. Because it just takes so damn long. I think I spend hours just sort of like setting up an indication of meaningful benchmarks and then, you know, running them to see the before and then making my change and then running to see after. So I've just been messing around with this little thing that basically like allows you to snapshot benchmark performance beforehand. Cool. Yeah, I'll surface that if it ends up being a thing. But
maybe try running it on the list and see if it
is very hyper specific to like the projects I'm running it in right now. So it just would not function that way. But I'll see if I can get it to, you know, configure for this as well. And I'll send that along. But
I've used Flashlight before.
So stuff like
but that was like this November, and it was slightly better than FlashList at the time. But there's been so many optimizations since then that I need to run it again.
Yeah, I definitely want to take some lessons from that. But performance is definitely doing an uptick given with respect to like all the React Native like changes from the React Native team recently. So I want to, and it's always been this question with React Native, you know, is like, is it performant? And the answer is usually like more typically like, well, is your code ass kind of thing? Like are you a bad developer? Because like you should really only be worried about performance if you're a bad developer.
Well, I will say React by default is slow. And you have to opt into performance with use callback, use memo.
They're making it easier.
All this other stuff.
Or they're making it harder to
compiler will solve a lot of that for sure.
Yeah.
But the other answer to improving performance is use legend state. But that's a whole other discussion.
Which I also want to like get that into so like even just this morning, right? Like I woke up, checked after I freaked out about 8:45, I checked the Discord and someone was asking about like using hook form with NativeWindUI, right? In our like paid community channel. And so much of the questions that pertain to like NativeWindUI are state related. So I actually want to start to like incorporate some aspects of opinionated state management. And I think we had talked about that when you were visiting LA. And I think it's worth digging into that plus the expanding the domain of what NativeWindUI covers. These are a lot of the like, what are you going to focus on? Because you can focus on so many things. Right now, we're actually focused on, and we'll wrap up here shortly so you can actually get to sleep. But the RN primitives, which is our set of primitives that power NativeWindUI, that power React Native reusables. We are revisiting those, moving them from like what is V1 to what will be V2 to be more mindful of like what platform are you trying to render to, and taking the requisite, like delivering you the requisite like files that are going to provide that native feel per the platform you're selecting, right? And the big one is web right now. I think Expo is going to do, I mean, with Expo UI, they're going to do their own thing with it. I think they're just, you know, moving forward on a path with like their own set of primitives here. Vercel is going to do their own, 100%, zero doubt in that space. And that's just a question of when. But for ours, like, we have an opinionated way of doing this, and I think that will inform then like desktop, right? It's similarly like once you have the like iOS, Android, once you have the dynamic of how you handle iOS, Android, and web, the desktop sort of slots into that. Like anything else just slots into that. But then ideally, on top of those primitives, you'd be able to drop in any kind of styling, right? Whether that, in the case of NativeWindUI, that just happens to be NativeWind styling. But, you know, I've used it with like unistyles. Like you can use any styling library with it. All to say that this is kind of how I'm bottom up with Zach Nugent working on supporting a wider breadth of target platforms, because right now if you try to use these primitives for web, they were not designed for that. And so when people ask about NativeWindUI support for web, it's just like, bruh, this is React Native, this is not web. Like, what are you trying to do? Just go use like Next.js or whatever the hell. But shortly, I think we're gonna allow for that. It's just required a sort of ground up rethink of how we implement this. The trick is keeping the API consistent, certainly, like so that it doesn't cause huge problems for people. But yeah, I definitely want to have either a separate discussion or a number of discussions about like the desktop stuff. I'm curious what would streamline that experience, and not just like streamline it, but like make it really like excellent, you know?
Well, one of the things is just there's not components, like there's not a button.
Yeah, you have to like do all that stuff like by yourself.
So I made a native module that is the platform button, which I guess has the benefit of it is a Mac OS button, but I had to build all the native module stuff to do that.
Well, Claude had to.
Yeah. I can read Objective-C and Swift, but I would not be able to just write it off the top of my head.
It's not your native tongue.
Having Claude generate that, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's how that should work, right?
It's so funny to see Mark Rusevi like starting to tweet about like how great like the LLM stuff is, because that's when I know it's getting good, in the sense that like Mark's the type of guy who will just like hit us up. He knows Objective-C like the back of his hand. Objective-C isn't even like the lowest level nonsense he knows. He'll just post in the Discord and be like, hey, who knows C? And I'm like, Mark, you're under the age of 30. Most of the people who work at this company are under the age of 30. And like, what is C? You know, like, what are you talking about? And he's just like, actually, normally it's C++, but it's just like a lot of the performance stuff. And this dude just like knows it, you know, he's just like ripping through it.
I used to know it 15 years ago.
Right. Exactly my point. When we were under 30, 15 years ago. So yeah, like it says something when someone who is proficient in that stuff is using the LLMs, because normally I would just think like Mark is just going to go write it himself. Like he could. And if you've ever seen a demo of like, you know, what he's doing with Nitro, you begin to see what I'm talking about. There's a lot of thought that goes into Nitro modules, that is. Yeah, all to say the LLM stuff is really coming along nicely, but you and I and other folks in this space that like I would say are like more the advanced side of React Native users benefit strongly from understanding the shape Like you might not know Objective-C super well, enough to write it like you said, but you know
Yeah.
the shape of what the right answer is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is,
Well,
yeah.
I did write apps in Objective-C like
Right.
15 years ago. So
Yes.
it brings back some memories, but I wouldn't be able to write it from scratch anymore.
I feel the same way, but like when I talk to like Claude, or I actually also am like a dedicated Claude user, you know. I finally got my like coding set up for LLM stuff configured pretty well. I don't know how you have it set up, but if at all, I think you were showing me you did have a substantial setup like the last time you were here, but I just have the Whisper flow, and then I just like, do you know about Whisper flow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like talking.
Oh, yeah. It's more comfortable for me sometimes.
Yeah. I'm usually not working from home. So
That's true.
yeah.
Where are you right now, Jay? Do you want to
Yeah, I'm in Singapore.
Singapore, yeah.
Yeah.
But not visiting the Lynx team. You know, Mark Rusavi is in Singapore, I think.
Is he?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think he
I'll
is.
send him a message.
I think
Interesting.
you should hit him up, see if he's still
Yeah.
around. But yeah, so yeah, so I do the Whisper Flow thing into Cursor. I use Sonnet 3.5 or like 3.5 Sonnet or whatever. Or is it 3.7? I think it's 3.7. I'm trying to
Sounds
shuffle.
annoying.
Yeah, I'm trying to shuffle between those two and see which one's better. I
Mm.
really can't tell the difference predominantly. But yeah, and then I have a whole set of rules, a whole mess of rules that I put in there that are just like, do React Native in this specific way, you know, and it makes, I
Yeah.
think, a substantial difference. It's still like whiling, but like,
Yeah, it does some stuff.
yeah,
I actually just had a lot of trouble getting it to use NativeWind correctly.
uh-huh,
Like just an
really,
hour ago, I was trying to set up theming with NativeWind, and it basically it did something that didn't work. And I said, "Oh, try this other thing," and then it just ripped out NativeWind. It was like, "We're gonna simplify and not use NativeWind." I was like, "That was the whole thing. I wanted to use it. Stop." And
okay.
I just
So
gave up on.
on that front, I am making an act. I have a side project of making NativeWind more friendly, the code base to be consumed by LLMs. I imagine it will take time. It's kind of like SEO work. I imagine this is just the future of SEO work, basically, right? Where it's just like
Well,
you make these changes, you hope for the best,
so
and you
I think I saw you're using Astro on the documentation site.
currently. No, well, we're
So
using Docusaurus for. Do you mean for
okay.
NativeWindUI or for NativeWind?
Either way, I saw some Astro code somewhere in your project.
For this project, Create Expo Stack, yes. For the landing page, it uses Astro
Okay.
Starlight, I want to say, or whatever.
Yeah. So the Legend State docs are Astro Starlight, and I made a little plugin that just converts everything to LLMs.txt. And so then you can link straight to that from Cursor, and then it knows how to use Legend State. So
Fascinating.
that might be a good way to go. I can send you my little script for that.
Yes, please do. We
But
are
that would work in anything. It's just like find all the markdown files, parse them, and then output this file.
right. So the NativeWind docs currently use Docusaurus and are hosted on Vercel. We are moving that to Fuma docs with like custom configurations, also to be hosted on Vercel. And then the goal is, yeah, like you said, to have that that like little .txt that you can feed into the LLM and
Yeah.
have it be able to meaningfully parse through the information. But yeah, I just thought it was really cool that like whenever you ask an LLM like styling questions pertaining to React Native, like more often than not, it's spitting out NativeWind code, and I was like, how can I take advantage
That's
of this?
cool.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I do have in my rules we're using NativeWind, and it does all this styling correctly. It was just
yeah,
setting up theming stumped it a little bit.
I think it stumps a lot of people, and in addition to restyling the docs or like just making them look better, like I said, I'm reworking individual pages, right? And so the current one I'm working on is the dark light mode toggle.
Mhm.
After that, then is the custom font one, and then I guess I should revisit. I suppose I could make the theming guide easier in conjunction with this dark light mode stuff, because it's just like an easy use of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the docs have needed some love, and so it's again, it's just one of those problems that has like a very large breadth, like a domain, and so you
Yeah.
have to like take it one piece at a time based off of like I basically just go through the issues list and stuff, and like, okay, what are people struggling with the most here, and in like the Discord usage kind of section.
Mhm.
Yeah. So all like it's gonna get a lot better. It's gonna get a lot better. um and some really cool announcements coming up with Native Wind. So I'm
Awesome.
glad it worked out on desktop. And if you have questions with that, definitely let me know. Um yeah.
Yeah, I'll try again with the theming. I'm trying to make like users make a JSON file of a theme, and then it pushes that through to NativeWind kind of thing. And then you can choose
Mhm.
from a library of themes, and it'll pass all that in through NativeWind. That's my goal. I don't know if that's
Okay.
even possible, but yeah, that's what I want to do.
I mean, we basically do that with NativeWindUI, so it certainly
Okay.
should be.
So they
Have you
go through as
seen?
CSS variables or something?
Yeah, so here we actually threw together this like literally this week. Hold on, my Bluetooth keyboard needs to connect. Come on, big fella. There we go. He's thinking. He's just hard. It's difficult. I hate Bluetooth so much. Oh, I accidentally posted it from like every single chat thing, but it's in the comments or whatever. Do you see that? So like
Yes.
theme.nativewindui.com.
Yeah.
And so you'll see if you just like adjust values there and stuff, like it'll modify the theme, and then it outputs it as your basically your global.css or whatever in your like colors file or whatever, and then you just copy and paste that into
Mm.
your NativeWindUI project, and it'll do that. But you could like theoretically implement the same kind of thing locally if you wanted. Although that
Yeah.
code isn't open source for that theme generator. If you want access to it, I can just give you access to it though, so you can see
Okay.
what the implementation actually looks like. Obviously,
Cool.
it's
Yeah.
using NativeWind.
I decided to punt that project for a few days, but I'll ping you about it.
Okay. But yeah, so this is super straightforward. As far as legend list, I'll implement it in NativeWind UI. Should go pretty smoothly.
Cool.
And then for legend state, I want to, especially with respect to forms, like I think a really strong start on that front would be like if we could create some sort of collab or something, like component or something that uses legend state for the form.
Yeah.
um that I think would be the best place to start and just like provide the most value simultaneously.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. I think we're good then. So if for no other reason to let you go back to sleep or to sleep,
Yeah.
we'll call it here, and we could have another stream next time about like a separate thing.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and I'll catch
Yeah,
you
thanks
later.
for having me. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. See you,
All
dude.
right. See ya.